Imagine for a second, you're sitting inside this armored capsule on the ground, right? Just completely surrounded by deafening artillery fire.
Oh, man.
You punch a button, and suddenly, boom, you are shot out of a cannon, just flying hundreds of feet into the freezing air.
Right through the clouds.
Exactly. You break through the clouds, and you land with this massive metallic thud on the deck of an enormous, heavily armored flying fortress that's just, hovering in the sky.
Such a wild visual.
It really is. And then your squad leader kicks the hatch open, and you all sprint into the belly of this ship to manually hack its nuclear core.
Knowing you have, 30 seconds to get out?
Yeah, exactly. 30 seconds to parachute off the deck before the entire behemoth detonates in midair. And the crazy thing is, that's not a cutscene.
Not at all.
That was just a standard Tuesday night multiplayer match 20 years ago. So, welcome to a new deep dive.
Glad to be here for this one.
Today we are exploring this massive gaping hole in the gaming landscape that was left behind by a legendary 2006 title, Battlefield 2142.
A true classic.
Yeah, and more importantly, we're looking at how this insanely dedicated community is resurrecting that exact experience for you right now with an ambitious overhaul called Project Remaster.
And to map out this whole journey, we have a really fascinating stack of sources in front of us today.
We really do.
We're pulling from these deeply nostalgic, honestly sometimes incredibly emotional Reddit threads from the broader Battlefield and, dedicated 2142 communities.
Yeah, people are very passionate about this.
Right. And we're also looking at this impassioned video essay by a YouTube creator named Slorgs, plus some technical articles from DSO Gaming, and step-by-step installation guides from Gitbook.
Oh, and don't forget the Discord logs.
Yes, exactly. We have access to exclusive behind-the-scenes Discord developer logs from a core mod creator known as Listen.
Which are just mind-blowing to read through.
They really are. So our mission today is to unpack the entirely unique lore and gameplay that made this game a masterpiece, figure out why modern titles have completely failed to replicate it, and discover how Project Remaster is, forcing this classic to run beautifully on your modern hardware.
Because you really can't talk about why this community is so desperate to rebuild the game without understanding the world it built first.
Right. The lore isn't just window dressing here.
No, not at all. The game is set in the year 2142, and Earth has been plunged into this catastrophic new global ice age.
Which, was heavily inspired by those early 2000s climate change anxieties.
Exactly. So the northern and southern hemispheres are entirely frozen over.
Yeah.
And you're left with these two massive superfactions, the European Union and the Pan-Asian Coalition.
And they aren't fighting over, conflicting ideologies or anything.
No, it's not political dominance.
Yeah.
They are fighting a brutal, desperate war of survival over the absolute last remaining strips of unfrozen land down in North Africa and the Middle East.
And that narrative of absolute desperation, it bleeds directly into the map design, right, and the environmental storytelling.
Oh, absolutely.
Because you're never fighting in some shiny, pristine, futuristic city.
Right, no neon skyscrapers.
Yeah, you're battling through the freezing, snow-covered ruins of the bridge at Remagen, or you're suffocating in these desolate, overheated dust plains of Highway Tampa.
The environment just feels hostile.
It does. And sitting right in the center of all that hostility is the absolute crown jewel of the game, the thing that defined the entire experience.
Titan mode.
Titan mode, yes.
If you have never played Titan mode, you have to picture a multiplayer match that feels, kind of like a massive multi-stage casino heist.
I love that analogy.
Right, because these Titans are colossal flying warships hovering over the battlefield. They're protected by this impenetrable energy shield, and their underside cannons are just constantly raining fire down on the map.
So you can't just shoot them out of the sky with, a rocket launcher.
No way. Taking one down is this intricate, multi-phase operation that begins entirely in the mud.
Right, so in the first phase, your team actually has to capture and hold missile silos scattered across the ground.
And these aren't just arbitrary control points, right?
Yeah.
Like, they don't just give you points on a scoreboard.
Exactly. Once you capture a silo, it physically opens up and automatically fires massive anti-Titan missiles into the sky.
Which is such a cool visual.
It is. And those missiles slowly strip away the enemy, Titan's outer energy shield. So the entire flow of the match is dictated by the physical state of those shields.
And once those shields shatter, the entire game shifts gears instantly.
Yep. Everything changes.
As a team, you now have a choice. You can keep fighting on the ground, desperately holding those silos to bombard the hull until it breaks apart. Or, and this is where the heist analogy really kicks in, You can physically board the enemy ship.
Which is just insane to think about for a game from 2006.
Totally. You hop into an APC on the ground, launch yourself in one of those drop pods we talked about, and boom, you land on the deck.
And suddenly, you transition from massive open field tank warfare into this tight, chaotic, close quarters infantry battle inside the corridors of the Titan.
Right. You have to destroy 4 security consoles, expose the reactor, blow it to pieces, and literally jump off the side of the ship as it explodes.
And we really cannot forget the commander's role in all of this, too.
Oh, right. Because the Titan isn't just a static prop hanging in the sky.
Exactly. The player acting as your team's commander can actually pilot your Titan around the map in real time.
Which is just wild.
Yeah, they can park it defensively in a remote corner to make it harder to board, or they can fly it aggressively right over a contested silo to provide ground support.
But that obviously puts it at massive risk of being boarded.
Exactly, it's a huge risk-reward mechanic.
And what's brilliant about it is that it organically forces everyone into a distinct, vital role.
Right.
Like, you have the getaway driver in a hover tank outside keeping the enemy armor busy. You have the hacker holding the security room, and the vault crackers deep inside the core. It wasn't artificially rammed down your throat with some glowing waypoint.
Right, you simply couldn't win if you tried to play as a lone wolf.
No, the mechanics demanded synchronization.
What's fascinating here is why this matters so much. It naturally forced teamwork through brilliant game design rather than just handing out arbitrary points. It created an organic tension that really no other game has matched since.
Yeah, and taking that organic teamwork a step further, you see it perfectly reflected in the asymmetrical vehicle design too.
Oh, the asymmetry is huge here.
Because modern shooters, they often give both teams the exact same vehicles, right? Just painted a different color. But 2142 leaned heavily into asymmetry.
Like the Pan-Asian Coalition having the Type 32 Nekomata.
Yes, the hover tank.
Right, it was a hover tank without a rotating turret. To aim, the entire chassis had to pivot. It could strafe sideways and spin on a dime like a heavily armed Beyblade.
A Beyblade, exactly. It completely changed how a driver approached an engagement. While the European Union had this traditional heavy track tank, they felt completely different to drive.
And then you have the bipedal mechs, the walkers.
Oh man, the walkers were terrifying. Just towering over the battlefield, armed to the teeth.
Yeah.
But the developers gave them a brilliant mechanical flaw, right?
Yeah, the unarmored ventilation spot underneath the chassis.
Right, it forced infantry to stop running away, coordinate, and basically bait the walker into exposing its belly so they could shred it with small arms fire.
Or consider the Goliath, which was essentially this heavily armed, slow-moving infantry fighting vehicle for the EU.
It was basically a moving fortress.
It was. And it didn't just have a generic health bar. It was covered in physical regenerative armor cells. You had to coordinate fire to sequentially blow off individual plates of armor before you could even damage the vehicle itself.
Every single encounter was basically a puzzle that required a squad to solve.
Absolutely.
Which brings us to the glue that held all of this together, right? The squad leader. Because in 2142, the squad leader was the only person on your team that you could actually spawn on.
And that single design choice changes the entire psychology of the player.
Completely.
In a modern shooter, if you die, you just click on any living squad mate and pop right back into the action. It's totally frictionless.
Right. But by restricting spawns exclusively to the squad leader, that player is elevated from just having a little star next to their name to being the most critical strategic asset on the board.
Exactly. Because if your squad leader goes down during a push into the Titan's core, your entire squad gets sent all the way back to the ground.
It's devastating.
It forces the squad to protect their leader, and it forces the leader to play smartly rather than just charging in blindly. Plus, they got unique unlocks, like deployable spotting drones.
Which basically turned them into a localized mobile radar station.
Sure.
So, looking at all this depth, right? The lore, the asymmetrical vehicles, the forced teamwork, it makes the current state of multiplayer shooters feel like a tragic step backward.
It really does.
Reading through these Reddit threads, there is literally a 2142-shaped hole in gamers' hearts. The sentiment is incredibly poignant.
People are writing things like, No game has ever filled this hole in my heart.
Yeah, they are longing for an era that demanded they think like a general, a pilot, and a frontline soldier simultaneously.
And the irony of that deep passion is striking when you look at the historical data.
Right, because Slorgs points this out in his video retrospective.
He does. Battlefield 2142 actually had some of the lowest sales figures in the franchise's history at the time.
Which is crazy to think about now.
It launched in 2006, just a year after the cultural juggernaut of Battlefield 2. And it dropped right at the beginning of an era where the entire gaming market became hyper-obsessed with modern, gritty military combat.
Right, Future Warfare was just a tough sell at the time.
So because it didn't shatter sales records immediately, the major studios looked at the spreadsheet and basically just abandoned the entire formula.
And now, you have this starving community desperately trying to scratch the itch with literally anything they can get their hands on.
Like Scion Conflict, which is a really impressive ARMA 3 mod.
Yeah, or indie titles like Nuclear Option and Silica.
But you read the comments under those projects, and the consensus is always the same. They're fun, but nothing captures the intricate, multi-phase magic of a Titan assault and those complex squad mechanics.
Right. They look at a modern release like Battlefield 2042 and see a game completely devoid of that deep lore integration and environmental storytelling.
And if we pull back and look at the broader industry, it becomes clear why studios abandon this design.
Oh, for sure.
Asymmetrical balance, where one team has a hover tank and the other has a traditional tank, is a mathematical nightmare to balance for modern competitive esports.
Oh, yeah. Major studios view that mechanical complexity as a massive financial liability.
Exactly. Symmetrical maps with identical weapons and flat, predictable gameplay loops guarantee a safer return on investment. They're optimizing for engagement formulas, not necessarily for brave, complex design.
And that is the exact friction point that sparked Project Remaster. When the major studios refuse to fill a void, the modding community will inevitably step in.
It's amazing what they're doing.
Project Remaster isn't just like a nostalgic patch to make the game run on Windows 11. It is a staggering, highly ambitious overhaul that aims to violently drag 2142 into the modern era.
The visual upgrade alone requires an incredible amount of technical wizardry. We're talking about integrating true 4K resolution support and unlocking 120 and 144 hertz frame rates.
And they even had to rebuild the user interface, right?
Yes, because in 2006, monitors were mostly square. When you force an old engine to run in 16.9 widescreen, it usually just stretches the image, turning around crosshairs into flat ovals.
Which is awful to look at.
Right. The modders had to completely rewrite the UI scaling so it renders perfectly without distortion.
And beyond fixing the HUD, they're completely overhauling the textures for every soldier, map, and weapon. They're injecting SMAA to smooth out all those jagged edges and integrating reshade.
Which is huge.
Yeah, if you aren't familiar with reshade, think of it as a highly advanced dynamic filter that hooks directly into the game's depth buffer. It completely revitalizes the lighting and color grading.
But they didn't stop at graphics.
No, they started fundamentally changing the mechanics.
They added 4th and 5th weapon slots for every soldier class, introduced entirely new primary weapons, improved the body physics, and totally overhauled the vehicle AI.
The bots are actually smart now.
Yeah, they engage you from a distance instead of just running into walls.
Okay, let's unpack this for a second, though. I have to push back on that. We just spent all this time dissecting how the original game was this delicately balanced masterpiece.
I know where you're going with this.
Isn't it incredibly dangerous, maybe even sacrilegious, for modders to start bolting on brand new guns and tweaking the balance? Why not just upgrade the graphics?
That is a completely valid concern, and it's the exact dilemma that tears most modding communities apart.
Right.
But the developers of Project Remaster understood this dilemma perfectly. That's why they created a specific, isolated mini-mod called Project Remaster V14 Vanilla Weapons, just for purists.
Oh, so they basically partitioned off the original experience.
Exactly. If you run that version, every single weapon and vehicle reverts to its original 2006 stats.
That's brilliant.
The recoil, the ammo count, the damage, they remain totally untouched. You get the glorious 4K textures and modern lighting, but the original vision is perfectly preserved.
That's such a smart compromise. And, you know, to really grasp the sheer willpower required to build something like this, we have to look under the hood. Reading through these developer logs from Listed on Discord is just mind-blowing.
The updates leading up to the beta V17 B3 release are wild.
Yeah, because Listed isn't just tweaking a few spreadsheets, right? They are performing open heart surgery on a closed 2-decade-old engine.
And the problem with the Refractor 2 engine is that the modders don't have the original source code.
Right, they're flying blind.
They're largely reverse engineering the compiled Python scripts. Licit talks about battling these 15-year-old memory leaks.
And a memory leak is basically when the game requests memory to load something, like an explosion, but the script forgets to release that memory back when the explosion is over.
Exactly. Over a long match, it eats up all the RAM until the game crashes. Tracking those down in old, undocumented Python code is incredibly tedious.
But because they're doing that tedious work, they're able to implement some wildly cool features. Like, Licit managed to reprogram the APCs so they can physically swim in the water on all maps now.
Which totally changes the tactical approach.
It does. And they redesigned the anti-air cannons on the Titans, because originally, if no player was actively sitting in the turret, it was useless.
Right, it just sat there.
But Licit wrote brand new AI autocontrollers for them. Now those massive Titan turrets will automatically target vehicles and rotate 180 degrees to blast them out of the sky.
The graphical logs are just as fascinating too, particularly how they handle the engine's fog.
Oh yeah, the fog adjustments.
Because back in the early 2000s, thick fog was a technical necessity. Engines couldn't render the whole map, so developers used fog to hide the fact that buildings weren't loading in yet.
But with modern hardware, you don't need that.
Exactly. So Licit is intentionally adjusting the engine's fog to dramatically increase view distances on massive maps like Port Bavaria and Suez. It completely opens up the sightlines.
But they're smart enough to know when to leave it alone. On Karkan, the classic infantry map, Licit intentionally kept the fog close.
Right, for gameplay reasons.
Because that visual limitation is crucial to the chaotic, close quarters feeling. It's just so deliberate. They're doing this dealing with Python scripting and memory leaks just to give players the ultimate experience.
Which naturally leads to the most important question. With all this incredible work done, how is the community actually playing this right now in 2026?
You might assume it requires a computer science degree, but the community has made it surprisingly streamlined.
It's essentially a three-step process based on the Gitbook instructions. First, you need the base game.
Right, and if you don't have your physical CD from 2006, the community has archived the files. You just install the base game and apply the 1.51 patch.
Step 2 is bypassing the dead servers. The original game relied on GameSpy, which shut down over a decade ago.
So they built a workaround called OpenSpy.
Exactly. You download the BF2142 Reclamation Hub, and it redirects your connection away from the dead servers into a new community-run framework.
Once you register a soldier name there, you literally just drop the project remaster files into your folder and hit play.
And yes, there is an active official server running the mod right now, currently on the V17B2 build.
But even if you don't want to play online right away, the mod supports full offline bot play.
With vastly improved bot spawns on maps like Wake Island and Minsk.
You can just practice taking down Titans totally solo. And what I love most is the accessibility. A community member named Roboki confirmed it runs perfectly fine on a 15-year-old Intel Pentium laptop.
This raises an important question, though, because this represents the ultimate triumph of game preservation. Modders aren't just archiving the game, they're actively evolving it.
It's incredible. So what does this all mean for you listening? Whether you're a veteran of the PayFast and EU wars who remembers the Walker's weak spots, or someone entirely new to the franchise. There is an incredibly dedicated community waiting to welcome you back to the 22nd century.
And as you think about firing up that drop pod, consider this final thought. When a small group of unpaid modders using Python scripts on a 2-decade-old engine can deliver more compelling squad dynamics and large-scale teamwork than modern, multi-million-dollar studios, what does that reveal about the current trajectory of the mainstream gaming industry? Are we prioritizing visual spectacle at the cost of the very mechanics that make multiplayer games memorable?
It makes you wonder, doesn't it? Maybe that polished loop we're playing today is just a pretty cage. Maybe it's time to break the loop, find a squad leader, and go take down a Titan.